Welcome beyond the Reiki Gateway. I'm your host, Andrea Kennedy. Like countless others, Reiki found me when I wasn't even looking, and then it ignited a whole new world of questions. This podcast explores topics of interest for the spiritually curious. Join me for discussions and special guests on subjects such as past lives, crystal healing, spiritual awakening, ascension, energy healing, and more, all to assist and inspire you along your unique soul's journey. This episode is sponsored by mainstreamreiki, offering live and online Reiki classes and a membership community to help Reiki practitioners succeed and grow in their practice. Find out more at mainstreamreiki.com. Hello and welcome again. This is Andrea Kennedy, your host of Beyond the Reiki Gateway. And today I am welcoming back to the show Tera McAmis. And you might remember her. She had such a popular episode. I couldn't wait to have her back. And just as a little reminder, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Tera, who's a quantum energy practitioner and teacher. She works with awakened beings in their human form to recall their origins and natural energy skills by following energy lines through the densities of the physical body, thought patterns, emotional wounds, alternate dimensions, and past lives. Now, Tera is working to empower people through education so they may actively manage and construct their own energy field and system to ascend the higher levels of consciousness as individuals and for the collective too. And wow, if that doesn't pique your interest, I don't know what really will. So, Tera, what a topic this is. Oh my gosh, I really just can't wait to talk with you about this. And I think I'm going to learn a thing or two as we talk, and that's super exciting. So thanks so much for being here.
Oh, thank you, Andrea, and thanks for having me back. Super excited to chat with you today.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Our pleasure here at the show. So we're going to get pretty deep into the energy system. And I know that our listeners to the podcast and our viewers also on YouTube, they have what they think is a pretty good handle maybe on the energy system and how it works. Maybe. Anyway, I want to check with you. How do you see the energy system? And I understand it's changing, and that fascinates me. And I can't wait to get into that with you. But can you explain basically about the energy system? And then I want to get into this changing thing, because that's the part that really has me curious.
Yes, it is changing. Like everything else in the world, we are changing too. We have four main parts of our energy system. And the first and most important is our higher self energy channel. And it flows from above the top of the head, down through our spine, through our pineal, down our spine, into our root chakra, and finally the Kundalini. And that is our life force coming in. Some would call it the soul coming in. Or however, it's our connection to source. It's our higher self energy flowing in. And so with that, from that come out the second part is our chakra system. Most of us know those 7 basic chakras. I see 8 on top of the crown. I see the dreamscape, because that's what I see in sessions, is purposes of dreams. But those are the main energy centers that anchor in. But also within that higher self channel, like I said, the Kundalini, the pineal, and there's the life power center in the middle of it. Now, those two together kind of create the larger piece of us. And then beyond that is the aura. And that is that electromagnetic field that we interact with the rest of the world in. Then within our system, though, is what I call the intuitive processing system. And that is classically known as part of it is the third eye. However, the third eye is really the pituitary, and it's just the lens. It's where our psychic data, our six senses, bring in the information. And then we bring it back and we process it in our pineal gland with our higher self channel. And so those 4 components are kind of the overall human energy system as we see it today.
Yeah, think in recent years we've heard more about the pineal gland, and this idea it needs to awaken or, change in some way. And,
Yeah.
the little bit I know about that, it does link into this idea of ascension and changing that we're happening or that we're seeing on the planet. But I'd really like to get your word on this because, as I said, I just hear things here and there and been trying to figure that stuff out. And with a science background, and listeners who've been around for a while will know, I'm always wanting to know the science behind this. And, I always have a lot of questions about it. So can you talk to us a little bit about the pineal gland, and is it changing? And if so, how?
Great questions. Yes, I think the science is a key component too. You mentioned that, and I agree. And I always feel everything I do, I need to understand some of the science too, because that's our physical body. That's a big component of the whole energy system is the physical expression of it. And so understanding that helps us manage the energetic or the ethereal sides. So our pineal gland sits right in the middle of our brain. It's a little bitty tiny guy, about the size of a pea. And it's actually called pineal because it's shaped like a pine cone. It's in the middle, that ventricle that runs in the middle, and it has a direct connection with the ventricle that runs spinal fluid to the pituitary gland. These are our two master glands, they say. The pineal specifically oversees our circadian rhythms. So when we're awake, when we're asleep, and everything in between. It oversees many other aspects of our kind of rhythms of our body. So it regulates the rhythm of our energy field, how it flows. And that's pretty important from an energy standpoint. And the pituitary oversees a lot of other aspects, such as our fight or flight, kicks in that survival brain. It regulates our temperature. It regulates many other aspects of our whole physical body and how it interacts within itself. Those two together create what I call the intuitive processing system, right? And so our pineal isn't exactly changing, but it is awakening. It is opening up. There's actually little tiny crystals in it, and it has its own electromagnetic field when it's activated. And so when we become more conscious of it and we focus our intention with it, and use our breathing to move spinal fluid through it and deepen the connection with the lens of the third eye, the pituitary, and our higher self channel running through our spine, we then become the masters of our own energy system. We can regulate the physical sleep states, dream, wake states. We can regulate all kinds of other things, including our level of higher consciousness. And so that's what we're using it for.
Oh, well, that's really fascinating. Because what you're saying then, if I'm hearing you correctly, is that people can learn how to really become the master of their bodies. And
Yes.
I mean, on all levels, I'm thinking.
Yes.
That's exciting and also really scary at the same time.
Yeah, it could feel a little overwhelming, huh?
Yeah. It's like, I don't know if I'm ready to be in the driver's seat like that quite so much. But you know what? As I say that, what comes in to my mind is it's about us being responsible in a whole new way. And this idea maybe of sovereignty that we've been talking about, it's like, whoa, that takes it to not the next level, but very, very advanced, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. And so how are our chakras changing? Are they changing too?
Oh, yes. Our whole system is changing. And if we think about how it's changing, if we are moving into higher levels of energy frequency on the planet, we've seen the sun bringing in more energy, and we know that we are elevating or ascending. We're evolving. at lightning speed, I often say, because it's an evolution of our energy system. And our chakras, I think, are one of the most fascinating parts, because talking about the sovereignty, that's what's happening within our system, is we are claiming greater sovereignty over our own energy system. We're becoming more independent of the collective, which ironically allows us to be more interdependent with the collective. We are consciously participating. Therefore, we are more responsible and we have more freedom. So with our chakras, they started out way back when, as we evolved from primates, and animals have chakra systems. And many of those are animal Reiki and animal energy healers know this. Those chakras, little points, little balls of light throughout our spine, our higher self channel. And as we have evolved onto two legs and standing upright, they started coming together more in the system. And as we gained individual consciousness, we started thinking about our world and how we are separate from it, how we can interact with it. We start finding that we have influence over it. Those little balls of light started expanding out because we started claiming more responsibility, more sovereignty over our bodies, right? And so for many eons, they have been, a lot of people see them as cones coming out, or just larger balls of light. But what they're really becoming is wheels. I call them wheels, chakra wheels. And they spin around our higher self channel. And as they spin, slowly evolving from these balls, turning into wheels, they spin counterclockwise, slightly spiraling upward into ascension, counterclockwise, unwinding into higher self. And they become, as they integrate with one another, a pillar of light, a beautiful pillar of light all around us, which gives us more individualness and more power. And also, that is the pillar of light that we're to shine out into the world and light for others.
It sounds more like a spectrum instead of separate energy centers.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's pretty fascinating. Okay, next question. Some people are more on a spiritual path, more awake than other people. Does that mean that their energy centers, their chakras, their pituitary, they're changing, and maybe other people who aren't on that path, theirs are not?
It's a
Or are
great
we
question.
all changing?
Well, we're all changing because we're all part of a planet that's evolving like at lightning speed, right? I mean, so you're either changing, and I always say this too, if you're living, the essence of life is growth. And the one essential component of growth is change. You cannot grow without changing. So if you're here alive, you are growing and changing. At the rate and at the depth is entirely your choice. That's the free will. But you are slowly kind of being pushed along with our planet's change. So some are not going as fast. And some will decide to check out, transition out. It's too much, maybe shift more on the other side and then come back in with a fresh start. They've gone as far as they're ready to in this life. That's very up to them.
Yeah, my mind's going in so many different directions as you talk.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go back, though, to the
Okay.
basic chakra thing. I'm going to
Okay.
rein
Yeah.
myself in for a little bit. But
Yes.
so we typically will, we have assigned colors, to the different chakras. We've, us in our framework, how we have to label and define everything. Are the colors changing? Are other things that I'm going to say it like this, Tera. I'm going to say, are there characteristics of the chakras that we are attached to?
Well, yes, of course.
that are changing. So we're going to have to reframe our understanding.
Oh, I love that. Yes, yes. And in fact, one of the things that's happening now, kind of start a little larger and I'll come into the chakras, is we are moving so quickly. Before, as we were evolving, we had time to process and adjust and shift into things. So it was much more subtle as those chakras shifted. Today, we are moving so quickly because the momentum is sped up. And as you know, it's like the snowball, only instead of going down the hill, we're going up the hill fast. So where we're at today is this massive change and shift in our entire system. And we need to, very importantly, update our spiritual beliefs, guidelines, all the things that we've passed on from our ancestors, been passed on for generation upon generation, ancestors beyond, all of that tradition and that understanding is shifting. It's not bad information. It just needs updating, just like everything else in our life needs updating, right? As we grow, we outgrow things and we need to upgrade them. And so that's what's happening with our human energy system. And along with that is our belief system, particularly in a lot of spiritual aspects. So with that, we are very attached to this classic chakra system that has certain colors like of the rainbow, basically going up. And those were real and true. And some people, as I mentioned, are still very heavily in their colors. However, as we ascend, we are shifting our frequency range. And so the vibrational rate is different. Therefore, the color spectrum is different because each color is a vibrational rate. And if we're to ascend, we don't want a heavy red sacral chakra. We want it to be lighter because if it's heavy and red and we're moving our upper chakras up into, lighter gold and white and translucent, we're going to be stretched out like a rubber band and snap either back down or in half somehow. And so we are shifting those. And what they're slowly becoming is eventually one single light, white light of the pillar, the light pillar.
You know what? Visible light, white light is what? All the colors.
All the colors, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, we're becoming
That's
the full
amazing.
spectrum.
So I just want to take a moment and point this out to everybody listening that tunes into chakras, works with their own, maybe they do sessions with other people. This is their permission to really ask and investigate starting right now. Give yourself permission to see differently. Don't be holding on to what you knew before. That's, I think, really important, because if we expect it to be the same, then we get stuck in that. Let's intend that as we practice and as we tune in and as we see, hear, feel, and know, things can be different. And that's good. That's good.
Yeah, that's growth.
Ooh, that's powerful.
Yeah.
That's really powerful, Tera.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yes. All right.
Yeah, I'll say, even so, where I learned some of this, where I started with it, was a gentleman named Audley Allison, who developed the concept of I wouldn't say developed, he recognized the shift in our chakra system into wheels, and also the intuitive processing system I was talking about with the pituitary, pineal, and several others back in the 70s and the 80s. And a beautiful, beautiful enlightened man who would go and discover. And I very much take a lot of my work from his foundation. In fact, he is one of my guides that comes in and chats. And the thing he kept telling me was, it's good, but you got to update it, girl. It's good, but you got to update it. And I mean, I was like, update what? How? And he's like, do what I did, go look. And so I have, that's what I've been doing with my guides. And this is stuff that was taught. And for me, when I first learned his work in early 2000, it was right. It was correct. There were still the colors, but there were wheels, and I learned how to shift the wheels. And so that was less than 20 years ago. And we have changed so much in just these last 20 some years. That is a huge shift to move from the colors to the full light spectrum in 2 decades. Think about it. It took us eons to move from little circles. It's literally thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of years, and we're moving in decades now. So if you feel overwhelmed, it's okay.
Yeah, this is just so incredible. So what other changes are you seeing, or maybe what I guess we'll start there. Are there other changes that you can tell us about?
Yeah, I think a big one we're really working on is what I say, the upgrading from instinct into intuition. And
Oh, yeah.
this is huge because our system, the same system in our physical body that runs instinct, which is survival brain, that fight or flight, from pineal, our pituitary and pineal nervous system, glands, all that good stuff, is the same as we run our intuitive processing system. And we're really overriding and clearing out a lot of the survival instinct and moving it so that we're not reactive, so that we can be responsive intuitively instead of instinctively reactive. And that is a huge hard shift. Because the first thing it does is make us feel uncomfortable. So we go into survival brain, right?
Yes.
Triggers.
Yeah. So two things are coming up for me. The first one would be, we've come a really long way in places in the world that we can focus on these kinds of things. Because way back when it was, and unfortunately there are still parts of the world where people are in survival mode.
Yes.
Based on what's going on around them. But I guess how I would frame that is, more of the population on the planet today has the absolute luxury of going into other ways of being besides the survival mode. So what a gift that is. I mean, we couldn't have done that, 1,000 years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think you get what I mean. So it's like, wow, just to have the opportunity to relax enough to be able to explore these things, I think is immense. I think that's so important. The other thing, though, that comes to my mind is trauma. This must be, correct me if I'm wrong, this must be why everywhere you turn, people are talking about healing trauma.
Yes.
I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Oh, yes. We have to heal the trauma. We have to. Because it keeps us in the past, first of all. So you can't move forward without doing so. Yes. And it is an immense gift that we have given ourselves to be in this place where the mass majority of humans don't have to be in survival mode, or at least not all the time in survival mode. Things come up. I mean, and we still always have those. We still have those traits. We still have those skills, right? To jump in and run or fight or whatever the heck we got to do. But one of the beautiful things is so many more humans have the luxury of safe space and have the option to create and indulge in that safe space to make these shifts. And a big part of that's moving the collective along. That's the first waves, right? It's but the big piece of that is recognizing and healing the trauma, both from this life and past lives. Ancestral, generational, cultural, you name it, all that trauma. So we're not in the past and we're not triggered, because if we're still holding that, something out here today can trigger it very quickly. And we don't know if we're being triggered by an actual threat today, or that trigger is connecting back to a past life, or earlier childhood, or you name it, right? And so if we heal that trauma, we are then elevating ourselves up into that higher intuitive response. Yeah.
Just the very fact, too, that many of us have opened up to this whole idea of past lives.
Yeah.
I mean, 50 years ago, we weren't there, you know?
Right? No.
So what's really occurring to me is how all of these different factors are all at play at the same time. And that's not an accident, because we're looking at trauma. We have acknowledged, a lot of us, more of us, I would say, past lives, ancestral healing. And there are even people who embrace the notion that when we heal today, we're healing the ancestral line, forward and backward in time. I mean, it all really
Absolutely.
goes together with what you're saying, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
It
where
is.
are we going, Tera?
Isn't that the $1 million question?
Yeah. Hello, it's Andrea. And in addition to being your host here at the podcast, I'm the founder of Mainstream Reiki, where bringing Reiki further into the mainstream is my mission. I offer quality Reiki classes of all levels to students attending live from around the world. And I've built a membership community as well to help Reiki people connect with each other through discussions, events, and Reiki practice. So if you're considering learning Reiki, or you already have, I invite you to visit mainstreamreiki.com to discover your next step in your Reiki journey. Thank you. And now back to the show. Yes.
Oh, and the answer is where we decide. We are the creators of this. We are the designers of this new earth, as I call it. I call it the Earth Ascension Project that we're in, and we have been since the beginning. I think we have to start with looking at where we come from. And that was when I first started talking about the chakras and how we were evolving out of primate into human. And even before that, since we've had physical life on planet, third dimensional physical life on Earth, we have been slowly evolving into an individual consciousness. And when we got to a point, the Earth, the collective living beings here, got to a point where there was enough individual consciousness, many light beings, angelics, starseeds, all of them, came in and decided to jump in and learn to be third dimensional. And often I hear, oh, we're correcting our mistakes. We've lost our way. We're going home into this being just a light being. But no, what we're doing, we've been non-physical for so long. Now we are being physical. What an experience. Because when we're non-physical, we're very wrapped in the collective. We're very much all one, right? But now we're these individual human bodies. And we're starting to understand how we interact and how we influence the world. We influence present tense and future tense with our actions that come from our thoughts, that come from our energy field. So as we move through that, as you can look at the evolution of humans and how we've come through here today, what we're doing is we're learning to embrace both the physical life and expand it out beyond into non-physical. We're learning to recognize how to be in those multiple dimensions at one time, being anchored in the third dimension, being able to reach out into the ethereal higher consciousness levels. That's where we're heading. So we have to break down all those old paradigms of being held strong only in physical. It's what we see is what we have. And we have to open up to being both physical and beyond physical. And that is where we're heading. That is not an easy concept to wrap your brain around. I work in the non-physical all the time, and all kinds of dimensions. I'm jumping every which way, and it's still hard to wrap my brain around it. So
Well,
I understand.
thank you. That helps me feel a little bit better.
Yeah, you're not alone.
As we're talking here.
Yeah.
Yeah, because what a journey, right? So this is going to be kind of random, but I'm going to put it out there anyway. What's your understanding? And I have no idea why this is in my mind. So this is me apologizing ahead of time, but this is what's in my mind.
Awesome.
So, what about Atlantis and Lemuria and this idea that we used to be advanced here on Earth, but then that was lost? What's your understanding of that?
Yeah. So, well, my understanding comes from my personal memories of it, and both of those, and what I work with and talk with the guides. So, both of those were, I see, like practice rounds of where we're at, because we don't know what we're doing. We've never done this. That's why so many light beings and cosmic beings are coming to check out what's happening here, because no one's ever done this. And so Lemuria was, and there's been others, but Lemuria, what happened there in a nutshell is we thought we could move faster into expanding into these higher dimensions than we really could. So we listened to some light beings or some galactic beings that came in and said, hey, we can infuse your energy grid. Let's pump it up to higher frequencies and everybody will advance quickly. Well, it basically fried us. I mean, you think about the whole planet was electrocuted. In a nutshell, there were some survivors. There were some, but so we had to start over. There starts evolution over again. Then jumping way up into Atlantis, similar. However, we said, no interference like that again. But there are beings out there who see us, and as we're advancing, we're creating a massive amount of concentrated energy around our globe. So anybody who needs some energy, here's a great reserve, right? Think of us pillaging oil from the earth. Well, pillaging planets for energy, or controlling and power. Think of the power you'd have if you could control this beautiful place of earth and all its energy. They came in and said, hey, we said no, and it ended up being a war in a nutshell. And most everything was decimated. Big piece of that was ego again. We thought we could advance faster. We could do it differently. Long story short, we started all over again. And here we are today. Atlantis was the last kind of big restart. But think about anything you do the first time. That takes a lot of practice. And, well, the essence of practice is failure. Because if you get it right the first time, you ain't going to keep practicing, right?
Right.
So that's where we are today. So where are we going to go? I don't know. In short, it's where we lead our collective intention. And with each of us putting in our pillar of light with highly responsible, positive intentions, then, and doing our work, we will go somewhere beautiful. We're already farther than we've ever been. So, and we may have to start over. Whatever. We've done it before.
It's just eternity. It's not a big deal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're
not going anywhere.
Yeah.
But so when you were talking, it sort of came up for me like, oh, it's a tie into the collective, because we have a reservoir of this wisdom somewhere, from the past. So from the first time that happened, and then, so there's some bit of memory there in the collective.
Mm-hmm.
It seems that as we mature,
Yes.
we actually really are learning from our past experiences and
Yeah.
past choices, maybe
Choices. Yeah.
choices. And
Yeah.
wow, so that's really something. I'd really love to talk
Mm-hmm.
about the earth a little bit more. How special earth is,
Yeah.
no matter where you are in the universe, each place is unique given
Mm-hmm.
the neighborhood that it's in, what's around it, for planets, stars, things like this. And earth, of course, is no different. And when I think about our place here on earth, we have our brilliant sun, the moon, we have these cycles that are only applicable to Earth, right?
Yeah.
Because once
Yeah.
you leave Earth,
Yeah.
the moon looks different, the sun's
Yeah.
going to be different. Um, and so I'd love to hear your perspective about the cycles of the sun, the moon. What are we seeing with this? I mean, the sun, without the sun, we wouldn't be here.
Nope.
All life is supported by our sun.
Yep.
Is the sun changing? Is our um, energy on the planet changing? And how so? Because we're talking about people's energy changing
Mm-hmm.
individually and collectively, but we're also in a sea of energy from these bodies around us. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, absolutely. Because I think it's a key component in how we are changing our human energy systems. So, the moon, which many of us know has its cycles, right? The new moon, first quarter noon, all the way through full and last quarter. And those we're pretty aware that we are affected by it. I mean, if anything, there's, the full moon and everybody gets a little wacky, and that is true. And part of that is it's science, as we started with. Our bodies are at least 70% water. And we know that the moon pulls the tides of the oceans. And so it pulls the tides within us also, and everything else on the planet. So we are intrinsically wrapped into its cycle. The more we can recognize that, the more we can embrace it and use it to accentuate our own growth and healing if we work with the cycles of the moon. Um, such as on a new moon, we are sprouting new things. And so if we think about that in our scheduling and our intentions, and we recognize within our bodies, the moon is darker, go within and nurture what's sprouting within you. On the full moon, we are out on display. We have more opportunity to look at where we are in our lives with clarity and light. So, same thing with the sun, in a sense. Yes, like you said, we wouldn't be here without it. It is our life giving source. It absolutely sends us rays, as we solar flares that are then corneal mass ejections, CMEs, energy to our Earth. And it adjusts and shifts our electromagnetic field of the planet, which is a whole beautiful, complex tides of energy that flow, just like the water tides in our ocean. So the sun, the best that we know, and our science on the sun is quite new because we are just developing the technology to really read it in the last 50 to 100 years. And really in the last 20, if we've really gone farther. But we know that the sun has an 11-year cycle, that it goes from minimum to maximum. And we are coming into the maximum of our 11-year cycle. And in that maximum is when it sends us more energy, maximum solar flares, solar activity, and we can see it on there. And that then is naturally sending us more energy, right? Literally more protons, more, all very physical solar energy is implementing into our planet, which is accelerating our growth and our change. That's why we're also seeing a lot of shifts on the earth, more earthquake activity, more volcanic activity, all of those things as the sun gets soaked in, it shifts, it moves, it evolves, which if we are earth beings, which we are in the physical, we are having that, it's having the same effect on us. It's literally upgrading our DNA. It's literally changing, it's ultra charging our own energy systems. And if we can recognize that, we can utilize it for our own ascension. We can also recognize and utilize it for the collective shifts and changes that need to happen. So, yeah, it's a powerful piece.
You know, back when I was seeing clients regularly, I remember I remember there was about a week. It was like everybody that came in, they were complaining of the same things.
Yeah.
Anxiety, and they just felt, you know, kind of supercharged, but I mean, rattled in a way. And then, you know what I discovered? It was high solar flare activity that week because it was so pronounced in everybody that came in. I thought, what is the common denominator here? And so I did some research and found that out. And can you talk to us with a little bit more knowledge, than I have for sure about the solar flares? How do people recognize, these changes? And then, talk about the moon. How do people register those changes?
Sure. So with our sun, I often feel like I'm being electrocuted when they come. I mean, it's you have that wobbly feel, like if you've ever grabbed an electric fence afterwards, that's very similar. And you kind of have a headache and you're cranky, it's that. And it's an easy way to put it. But what's happening, I think it takes 7 minutes from a solar flare typically to be released and reach the sun. Or reach the earth, excuse me. And so a lot of us who are very sensitive feel it come out of the earth. So even sometimes if it's not coming directly towards earth, we'll feel that. But when they get here, it's very strong and we can feel that. Yeah, the anxiety piece is that survival brain. And that's why we're upgrading to a more intuitive response situation. So we can go, whoa, before we go right into anxiety and icky feelings and we dive in and we feel grumpy or we're whatever it may be, wait a minute, I'm not going to react out of survival brain. I'm going to move in to intuition. Why is this happening? Oh, I feel it in my body. Oh, okay, let's check out solar flares. Are they happening? Or is there a geomagnetic storm? And what happens is we often have, either we're exhausted and or we can't sleep, which is often happens. And we feel achy. We might feel like we're sick. Just strange things will happen too. You can see if they're really big, they affect our electronics. They're running on electricity, energy. Some of those really big ones, the historic ones we had in May, actually electrified the earth. And there's good science on it, and repositioned our satellites. They had to reposition themselves, had to adjust. So you can only imagine the physical body, all that shifting. And if we recognize that's happening, we can stop, we can breathe, we can drink more water to keep the energy flowing smoothly. We can, instead of try and get rid of it, we can embrace it. I think that's a lot of times people, I just got to feel better. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Hang on, wait a minute. This is a good thing. They're growing pains. The sun is propelling growing pains. Okay, stretch them out. Bring them in. And if you learn your intuitive system, you can learn how to breathe your energy down, pull that new energy all the way down into your root chakra and your Kundalini, and then breathe it out and let it disperse through the body so it's not overwhelming any one part. Yeah. Same with the moon. The moon is more subtle. We also have been dealing with the moon. We deal with the moon cycle every 28 days or so. So pretty much every month we have that same cycle, and it's very regular. So most of us are pretty attuned to it, just instinctively, even primitively within our system. But if we start recognizing it, we can utilize it because it's not changing so much, except that it is being supercharged. because everything is with our sun. The moon absorbs in, solar flares too. And so with that, just paying attention to it. I keep it on my Google Calendar. There's a calendar that says phases of the moon, so I know. Easy check, right? With our sun, it's more erratic, and so it really takes a little bit more paying attention to, and we're not as adjusted to it.
What'll happen after the 11-year maximum?
We'll start all over.
So we'll have more of an absence of solar flares.
Yeah, so it's kind of and like I said, this is new science. So the predictability rate is kind of low. In fact, this solar cycle, which I believe is solar cycle 25, was supposed to be lower than solar cycle 24, but it's actually outperforming itself. And it's breaking records we have not seen in any of the solar cycles prior. But if it's 11-year cycle and we've only tracked 25 of them, sun's been around a little bit longer than that. Right? So, but what happens is it ebbs and flows, just like the moon. It will slow down and it'll speed back up. It'll slow down and speed back up. And that's how we get that kind of 11-year span. So, yeah.
How does that relate to the Schumann resonance? Do you know about that?
I do. That's what they call the Earth's heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
And it is the base vibration of our planet. So, also somewhat quite new in science and not highly developed in the technology for it. However, it seems to correlate, and what I feel with it is after some really intense solar flares or geomagnetic storms where our Earth's magnetic field has been shifted, as that absorbs in, it affects the vibrational rate of the Earth, going up and kind of amps it up, which means more charge, more growth, more change, and then it calms back down. Yeah.
All right. Well, you've mentioned a word a couple of times, and I want to bring it up. And that's Kundalini, because there are different ideas about Kundalini out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we need to understand Kundalini better because now's the time. So please share with us what we need to know about Kundalini and what it really is.
Yes. It is probably one of the most misunderstood parts of the energy system. There is a lot of the old tradition or old belief system is that it was connected in with the procreation chakra, really. So it was massive passion, sexual energy, and be very careful when you bring it up. The snakes uncoil and all of that mythology with it. And I would say, yes, maybe there was some of that in the past. Personally, my understanding from my own past life memories and speaking with my guides around this is that was more about stories that were told to help us suppress our Kundalini, to fear it, to fear our own power so that we don't access it. And so I've never seen a snake in anybody's Kundalini, promise. Not at all, not anywhere around it. What I find it to be and what I call it are the archives of our soul. And it sits, so we have our root chakra. And I always think of it as it sits in the flooring of the root chakra. Kind of think of it like in the basement, There's not a physical connection. It's just below our tailbone in a sense, if you're kind of going for a body part. But it corresponds with our pineal gland. So it to me is like our moon. It's our inner sanctuary. It is untouched by everything else. And there's two parts to it. First, like I said, the archives of our soul. It is where we store all of the knowledge and the wisdom, the skills, and the experience we have gathered over these lifetimes. So not our Akashic records that contains everything that happened. It's what we have taken away from our lives that we can utilize in this lifetime. So you mentioned kind of that ancestral history coming forth. This is our personal history, which contains some ancestral, right? Because we are part of that. But what it is it's all of, I think of it like a library, the archives, we can go in and access that information, bring it forth, update and utilize it as we need in this life. Also, the second piece to it is our reserves. It's an energy reserve that we hold in the center of it that we can draw upon of our own life force, because our higher self energy comes down into it and fills that. So it's our little extra bank, extra battery pack you could think of for when we need that extra zoom in energy. Yeah.
So that would be, if I'm understanding correctly, like a reservoir of just treasure for us, right?
Yeah.
And so if we can access that and bring that into this lifetime, that would help us express more of our natural gifts, our natural who we are. Is that right?
Yeah. If you think about it, we have preferences in what we're learning, just like in this life. And so we'll practice them lifetime to lifetime. There are skills you've really mastered in our Kundalini that, we may tend to be drawn to in this life, but man, if we could go in there and get what we've already been learning, jump up a few grades, right? And a big piece of that too is it's like our inner sanctum. So it's our sacred safe space where we can go down and go, we have learned stuff. We do know stuff. We can fulfill ourselves and our own confidence. And if we can access that information, which we can very easily, we learn the breathing techniques. There's an ancient technique called Kriyas. And the Kriya, you bring up the Kundalini energy, you draw it with your breath, which is also drawing your spinal fluid up your spine and then out through your crown chakra so that it comes out over the crown and then cascades down into the appropriate chakras where it matches, right? And so we can slowly kind of be bringing that information out and letting it be activated within our present energy field, both upgrading it and empowering it. And once you really master Kundalini, you can bring it up and center it wherever and send it, direct it to where you most need to use it.
Children being born today, would you say they're more able to access Kundalini?
Many of them, yes, because many of them are coming in with less of the past life conditioning that we have brought forth. And that is, they've chosen that because they're entering into this new earth energy grid already, and it's already forming. Yes. Now, because normally when we're born, it's closed, or it's not entirely closed, but I always think of the hatch is mostly, it's 10% open. But as we mature and we have the experiences to handle our Kundalini and ready to access it, Kundalini naturally opens unless we have trauma. And often we'll shut it, just like you lock the safe to protect the jewels. And it needs to be reopened. But yeah, children today are coming in at a whole different vibrational level, which naturally has more access to Kundalini.
It's funny because what I think of is these children that come in and they can sing like they've been singing for their whole life, and they're like 8 or 5 even. I mean, it's like, whoa, there is something else going on with some of these children with these amazing gifts that are coming. The idea of shame, when you were talking about the old description of Kundalini and how it was connected to sexual energy and things like that. And, that little bit there about what you said while you were talking, the idea of shame came to my mind. And because you were talking about keeping, I'll probably have this totally wrong, but in my brain, in my memory, I'm thinking that you said something about, to control us or to keep us small, kind of, well, that would make sense, wouldn't it? Because if you can shame people, ooh, they shrink, don't they?
Yeah.
And then they don't want to go there. And this is the era on planet Earth where we're healing all of that.
Yeah.
And these children are coming in and they don't have the tie to the old shame. Huh. So much to think about, Tera.
I know.
And I'm getting the scratch that. It's not think, it's feel. So much to feel about with all of these. I mean, we jumped kind of all around, but I mean, galactic stuff, we jumped everywhere. But I just feel like I need to say this because whether it's moon cycles, solar flares, cycles, energy, the earth, our own anatomy, the chakra system, how you see it, the pineal gland, the Kundalini. I mean, so all of these things we've touched on. But I think the common thread, at least in my viewpoint, the common thread of all of the things that we've covered is that that's your realm. And what you do is you can help us navigate all of that in a way that we are helped to move forward because you have the ability to, what's the word? Help us navigate those things for us then to step into our own ability to manage that for ourselves. But that's enormous. I mean, what an enormous task, I need to go have a nap just thinking about it. But wow.
I love naps.
But I mean, I'm just trying to wrap my head around what would life be like if I understood my energy in relation to all of these things, these other influences, and knew how to optimize things for myself or decide I'll go take a nap today. I'm not going to do that, but at least have the knowledge, to better decide what I'm going to do to help myself. Because during this whole ascension and, all these changes on the planet, we're, I think, scrambling around a lot.
Yes.
I mean, we're scrambling around. We're trying to figure it out. Like, who do I listen to? What do I do? And I mean, I know people, and I'm probably, one of these people too, where I'm just grasping at things, right? To try to help myself or to go further or understand more. And, I think a lot of us too are rushing, right? To get to that next place. And I think it is a process for sure, but it's hard to accept that sometimes. It's like the trip in the car in the summer. Are we there yet?
Yeah, exactly.
Are we there yet?
No.
How much longer?
Oh,
yeah.
Spoiler alert. There's no destination. There is no getting there. The journey is there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is so true.
It is. I think I would say, a couple of things quick on that is it can feel very overwhelming and we are jumping around. And part of the jumping around at times is survival brain. It's the triggers. We're trying to find comfort. We're trying to find safety. We're trying to find somewhere calm and solid to land. And that goes back to those stereotypes and those categories. And I say, when you get there, go take a nap. You need to just calm the body. Just step out of it and then step back in with that more childlike wonder and delight, the curiosity of where we get to go and what do we get to do along the way. And it is hard, and it's hard because we're going so fast and our physical bodies are feeling so much of this these days. And then everywhere we look, things look like they're falling apart, and they are. They are literally falling apart. But that's so we can make room for the new to grow, to build, for us to design and construct it, just as we're designing and constructing ourselves. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And so if we kind of keep that perspective, and then when we're trying to learn our own systems and really focus on that, if we are just managing our own systems, we'll have the confidence to navigate all the crazy out there. And we'll also know when to go take a nap. And I do love naps. I'm a big proponent of them. Take as many as possible.
Yes. Yes.
A big piece there too is, as we can do that, we are then the masters within our own energy system, like I said, and we have that power and that empowerment. And it's understanding who we are energetically, how that works on every level, and then how it interacts with the base big systems like the moon and the sun and the Schumann, all of it together. And that way, we don't feel so lost. What we do is we feel a part of the sway and the flow and the tides, and we're all rolling together instead of jumping about and guessing, which we all get caught in, because that's the old way. The old way is surviving through the trauma, surviving through the chaos, but we're not doing that any longer. We're flowing through the new growth and allowing the old to let go. And that's really beautiful, in my opinion. So
I love how you just described that. For everybody out there, your website is
elevatedenergies.biz.
Awesome. Tera, I am so thrilled that you came back to the show and you took us everywhere. You indulged me with all my random questions. So thank you so much. So appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Andrea. It has been an honor and a delight to get to talk with you again and to go everywhere. So it's been a lot of fun. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. And from myself and the team here at Beyond the Reiki Gateway, we'd like to say thank you to our listeners for all of your support, including leaving great reviews, becoming BTRG insiders, and sharing the show with your friends and family. Drop us a line at info@beyondthereikigateway.com anytime. Tell us what's on your mind and take great care. Until next time. Thank you for listening, and you can check the show notes or visit the website beyondthereikigateway.com to find out more about the podcast and connect with me. Please keep in mind that views and opinions expressed in the show don't necessarily reflect those of the podcast or anyone affiliated with its production or advertising. This program is presented for your entertainment only, and all information provided is to be utilized at the listener's own discretion. I, along with the BTRG team, hope you enjoy the show as much as we enjoy making it for you. Wishing you highest blessings until we meet again beyond the Reiki Gateway.